All right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. The recording and deck will be distributed after the webinar today, so more content to come. Today, we're going to be talking about some of the top questions to ask when evaluating customer success solutions. So my name is Spiro. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, I am on the sales team here at ChurnZero, one of the account executives. I do these webinars typically, at least once a quarter, being that we're wrapping up the end of the year. And thanks to everybody for spending time with me the last week. I know a lot of folks are on vacation, but I thought a good way to end the year here at ChurnZero to do a quick webinar to better, I guess you could say, educate prospective buyers about, things to consider when they're looking at potential tools. So we're going to talk a little bit about, why it's super important, especially nowadays, to invest in customer success technology. We'll talk about a few, popular, rather important questions that I hear quite frequently. I meet with about, 30 or so customer success leaders on a monthly basis. So just wanted to take some of the things that I've learned and share with the group. So let's go ahead and get started. And we're going to kick things off with a short poll. So feel free to answer the question if you like. We'll wait about 30 seconds or so and then close the poll and share the results. All right, still collecting responses. We'll give another moment or two. All right, so it looks like about 60% of the folks attending this webinar have evaluated customer success tools in the past. If you haven't already bought a tool, this is definitely going to be right up your alley. Some things to think about, things to revisit. If this is, you've not embarked on this journey yet, lots of stuff to consider and think about as you guys, head into 2021. The first question that I wanted to bring up is a pretty easy one, more common than you think. What if churn isn't a problem? I think there's kind of a common misconception that, these customer success tools like ChurnZero and other vendors really only apply if you have a churn issue. That's most definitely not the case. This is almost an objection, even our SDR team here. So it's definitely something that, we come across quite frequently. And, regardless of churn, being a problem or not, there's a lot more to consider when thinking about customer success tools. Obviously, if, you've got, 20% churn annually, a customer success tool would be a no-brainer. But more often than not, there's a lot of other business drivers that are really, pushing people towards customer success applications. And I typically see two distinct scenarios. Some folks, they might have that churn problem and they're trying to address, why their accounts might be leaving and put a plan in place. On the other side of the coin, it's more of a scalability issue. Retention is okay, the company is growing, everything is going well, but as we scale, we need to keep retention high as the company grows. Believe it or not, that second scenario is far more common than the first, where people are just trying to figure out why 20% of the revenue is leaking out of the bucket annually. And that's definitely predominant in the B2B space. Obviously in B2C, a little bit different of a story there. But, regardless of your team's model, higher touch or lower touch, there's definitely some use cases that I think some people, don't always pick up the first time they might see a product demo. Even if you have a super high touch team, retention is strong, your product is super sticky, you might not think, tools like ChurnZero would apply to you, but there's a lot of things that people aren't thinking about. Like maybe you've got a really sticky product, but you've got a gigantic user base. You need to make sure that those users are adopting your products. Maybe you've got key accounts. You want to expand those enterprise relationships. I think both high and low touch teams a big thing that customer success tools bring to the table is better managing outcomes, across various milestones. What should we be doing? What should our customers be doing? Almost using ChurnZero the same way you would use a project management tool. So in short, these tools like ChurnZero, incredibly powerful. Definitely do not have to have a churn problem to use them. And we're going to talk more about some different applications of customer success tools in a couple minutes here. So let's move on to the second question. Can't we do this all in Salesforce? I hear this all the time. Every time I hear it, I think back to my days as a CSM. I managed about 100 accounts at a publicly traded company for almost 3 years, and I did everything inside of Salesforce. And while it might have worked, if you could see my camera, I'm doing air quotes, there's a lot of things lacking. Salesforce, any CRM for that matter, incredibly powerful, extremely customizable. You can make those tools do almost anything you need it to do. The fact of the matter is, the way Zendesk was built with the support team in mind, the way Salesforce was built with the sales rep in mind, customer success teams, they're typically using a smorgasbord of all these tools that weren't really built with that role, that department in mind. And that's exactly why companies like ChurnZero exist. So to really focus on the differentiators, what you might be able to do in a customer success tool, but not apply in a Salesforce, really boils down to two things: engagement and lifecycle management. When I say engagement, I really mean how your customers are engaging with your products and your services. I've seen some of the best Tableau dashboards living inside of Salesforce, product analytics all over the place. It's very hard to connect the dots between what's happening in those dashboards and what's actually being done by your CSMs on a daily basis. On the other side, we've got lifecycle management. When I was a CSM, I did a ton of onboarding. I did it in Salesforce. I used cases. I was extremely good at monitoring and measuring all of my internal tasks. What I was really missing was an effective manner in which I'd be able to measure my customers' outcomes. So I spent a lot of times doing things manually, a lot of guessing, and a lot of chasing, because if a customer didn't do something they were supposed to do and they needed to fill out that document in order to finish the onboarding process, there was no way of really knowing. And I think that's really where people start to really focus on the differentiators between something like Salesforce and a tool like ChurnZero. How do I use product engagement in an effective manner? And how do I manage various stages of the customer journey? All best suited for a tool built with the customer success team in mind. Let's do another quick poll. A lot of the folks that I meet with, everyone is looking to pull on some sort of lever. There's always some sort of metric KPI they want to improve upon. So let's do a quick poll and see, what would be most relevant to the group we have here today: retention, upsells, time to value, or increasing account to CM ratio. What I mean by that is today everyone manages 10 accounts. I would love everyone to manage 20 accounts, so I don't need to hire more people. We'll let everyone answer for another moment or two, and then we'll share some of the results. All right, it looks like about a third of the group is focused on revenue retention, time to value of another third, and we've got some folks focused on upsells and then increasing CS workload. The good thing is customer success tools do all these things. So, regardless of what vendor you might partner with, you're going to be able to achieve some sort of results. But let's keep going. Let's talk a little bit more about who should manage the tool. This is something that I honestly wish I would hear more often. When people bring this up, I love it. It means that they're paying attention to detail. They're doing their homework. Some folks that I've met with, maybe the first time they evaluated tools, they did not ask this question, and they found themselves in a unpleasant situation in the near future Just like this person here on the left-hand side, I can't decide if this is someone that has to admin a very complex tool or someone trying to find an admin, but you guys get the idea. And to answer the question, who should manage the tool? It really does depend. There's a lot to unpack here. The first point, there are more options today than ever before. I started at ChurnZero about 2 years ago. At that time, there was really only 5 or 6 players in the space. Now, December, 2020, I think that number's probably doubled at least. But the fact of the matter is, not all tools require an admin or a full-time resource. ChurnZero is definitely one that does not. There are a lot of vendors out there. Some of the older vendors that have legacy applications, a little bit clunkier, heavier to lift, definitely need a full-time admin, but not the case. If you don't have those resources, or you don't have someone that's able to manage your tool the same way maybe your sales ops person manages Salesforce, then I definitely recommend focusing on this quite a bit during your evaluation process. As a general rule of thumb, the more customized you want your application, there's a strong correlation with a greater need for someone to manage that application full time. The customized versus turnkey, I can kind of go back and forth on this one. Turnkey solutions, easy to implement, easy to deploy, easy to manage. Of course, you're going to have to forego some level of customization. So definitely, think about that as you're, talking to your vendors about, what kind of resources might be required or needed. And then, of course, the case for customer success operations. It's still funny to me that, most organizations out there are more than happy to invest in sales ops and sales support, but for some crazy reason, reluctant to do the same thing for the customer success team. And we all know it costs far more to, find new customers. So, one quick hire for the CS team, you can definitely make a very big impact. So if you are lucky enough to have the resources or to have a customer operations person, I 100% recommend getting them involved early in your evaluation process, because one of two things is going to happen. If it is a tool that requires a full-time admin, that person, their workload just got a lot bigger, or you're going to have to find a colleague for that individual. On the other side, if you have a tool that is more turnkey, does not require as much admin, then that CS person could be a champion you'd be able to develop early on, and that's going to make the presentation to your C-level team much smoother. As a ChurnZero best practice, whether you're evaluating, implementing, what have you, there's going to be certain people that are involved. Customer success tools, they touch, all of your technologies. They involve, most departments. That's why, what we do is we typically recommend that a non-technical resource should be spending no more than 2 to 3 hours per week handling any admin-like responsibilities. So keep that as kind of a mile marker in your head when looking at various tools, because the last thing you want to do is invest in customer success technology and pick a specific vendor without fully understanding the total cost of ownership. Otherwise, you might end up looking like my friend Valerie here. Let's move on. We've got one more poll, I believe. So this is going to bring it back to more, how your team, how your company purchases things, what's most important. Just trying to better understand what the biggest factor is in determining what tools your company might buy. Some folks are purely cost driven. Some folks want to see hard, fast ROI. Other folks just want something easy to use, more of that change management scenario. We'll give everybody a few moments and then we'll check some of the results. So far, it looks like about a third of the group, maybe 25%, says cost. A little bit over half says ROI. And we've got 1 or 2 folks in the ease of use category. And to be honest, ROI, I think that is the most important piece of the puzzle here. Customer success in general, newer space, newer concept for some companies. A lot of CS folks, they haven't bought a lot of tools in the past because it's a newer department. So putting together that business case, specifically ROI, that is hands down the most effective way to present these tools to your leadership team. And we're actually going to talk a little bit more about that process and ROI in general in our next question. So this one, how do we sell this to our C-suite? Most of the folks that I meet with, directors of CS, VP of CS, CS operations, great people. But from what I've seen, specifically in the customer success space, C-level individuals are always involved in the final say. You've got CFOs, chief product officers, chief operating officers. Everybody is going to be involved in this decision because it really is a company-wide effort. So how do we sell this to the C-suite? One thing that I do every time I wrap up a sales call, the last thing I ask is if we can show ChurnZero to either the product team or the leadership team. If we need product analytics from your chief product officer, let's get them involved. If we need buy-in and budget from the CFO, let's get them involved early as possible. And as I said, the best way to sell this internally is to start early and go as wide as you can across your organization. And I always recommend starting out by better understanding what everyone's goals are. CFOs are looking at the bottom line. A COO might be looking at shortening time to value. Chief product officers want to focus on things like product adoption. All these things can be done in a customer success application. And to properly convey that information, you need to make sure that your management team's goals are aligned with what the solution can actually execute. The next step in that process is going to be creating some sort of business case. As I mentioned in the previous poll, this is hands down the most important piece in getting budget and approval. My customers that have been able to successfully present the tool and get buy-in and budget, those folks 100% put together a rock solid business case that shows how we're able to capture ROI and improve those metrics. If the sales rep you're working with at ChurnZero or any other vendor isn't already starting this part of the conversation with you, I recommend that you bring it up yourself right out of the gate. I know a lot of companies like ChurnZero, for example, we've got several ROI calculators on our website. A lot of companies in our space do something very similar. Just one example of free, easy to use tools that you can leverage to help present that business case. And when you're actually presenting and having this conversation, you've got to get ready for objections. Each department could say something different. Someone in sales ops might claim that they can build all this stuff themselves in Salesforce and it's purely for job security. These objections are so common. We've actually created an ebook called How to Sell Customer Success Software to Your C-Suite. Incredibly powerful document, helps me sell ChurnZero, helps my customers buy ChurnZero. It's on our website. If you can't find it, ping me. I'll send it directly. Definitely worth a read if you're planning on evaluating tools next year and have to get buy-in from the top. And lastly, case studies, real-life examples. Bring it as close as you can to home for your leadership team, and it's going to go a long way. This is probably the second most critical piece to presenting to leadership team, outside of that, financial case. Because at the end of the day, this is how we're going to support those predictions, those projections of what we're going to accomplish. So if you're a cybersecurity company, see if your vendors have cybersecurity case studies. If you're looking to decrease time it takes to onboard, ask the account executive you're working with if they have a case study about onboarding. Those things are going to be super relevant. And like I said, being able to weave that stuff into your presentation is going to put you in a very good spot. And lastly, if you get the green light, if everybody's good to go, congrats, you've already made it this far. Now we've got to get ready and we've got to do a few things as soon as possible. These have not already happened. The most important thing is we got to get your product team aligned and get some sort of resource allocated. If you're going to install things like a JavaScript to do in-app messaging, we got to make sure that your engineering folks know about that stuff. If we're going to integrate with Mixpanel or Pendo for events, we also need to make sure that people managing those tools are ready to assist. Even your CRM admin, while there's not a whole lot of work they're going to be doing, they're going to be instrumental in getting that integration set up. Even having things like security documentations teed up for your IT department. If you do all those things before you go to your C-level and get approval, you're going to be in a very, very good spot. And a really easy way to uncover this stuff, very simply ask the vendor you're speaking to about their onboarding process. How long does it take? Who's involved? What sort of documentation can I review ahead of time so when I get this approved, we can hit the ground running? By asking all these right questions and getting the right teams involved early on, it's going to put you in a great position to hit the ground running as soon as you get that green light from your leadership team. The very last question we're going to talk about, what kind of ROI can we expect from investing in a customer success solution? And there's a lot. We talked about a few minutes ago, cost, ROI, that sort of stuff. When you think about, what do our customers get from using ChurnZero, or what do any organization really get from using a customer success tool? There's a few things that come to mind. Anytime we can improve revenue retention, that is a home run. Like Home Actions here on the upper left-hand corner, they're a small but very powerful customer success team. They're in the residential real estate space. They're very heavy in automation and the way they use the tool. And they had a churn problem. And in the first year, they were to improve their churn rate by over 20%. Other companies like Inflow Communications, they are a ShoreTel, Mitel reseller located in Portland, offices all over the place. Their big pain point was how long it took people to get set up. So what they did was they were able to reduce time to value or reduce time to onboard by 50%. One of my favorite stats, something that not many people talk about as often, but I did see some people select this in the poll, was increasing the account to CSM ratio. Fiscal note here in my backyard, Washington, DC. I believe they went from 400 customers to 3,000 customers. So like a 13x increase, as you can see, in account growth. And doing so, they only increased headcount from 10 to 20. So that's one of my favorites. Hey, everyone's got X number of accounts. After using ChurnZero for 6 months, I've now been able to double that account load for each individual contributor on my team. So as you can see here, a lot of different metrics, a lot of different levers we can pull on, and definitely good things to weave into those business cases, because some of these companies on the screen here could very well have the same problems that you were having, before embarking on your evaluation process. So a couple key takeaways, customer success tools can help everybody, not just SaaS companies, not just companies with low touch teams, not just companies with poor retention rates. There truly is something for everybody in the customer success world when it comes to using these tools. The second thing we talked about, can this stuff be done in your CRM? Is Salesforce gonna get us there? Maybe, it's more of a Band-Aid solution. There are some things you can do that are better than doing nothing. But even the most customized, sophisticated instances of Salesforce, unfortunately, are not scalable. That's why it's super imperative, regardless of how much you want to customize Salesforce, to highly consider investing in a tool that's built with your department in mind. From an admin, total cost of ownership perspective, not all tools require an admin. I think, some of the first players in our space, they kind of, set down the framework that makes people think, hey, I can't deploy a CS tool because I don't have a full-time admin. Not the case. Was the case in 2010. Now, very, very different. There's a lot of turnkey tools out there for agile teams that don't have the resources. And lastly, probably the most important piece is getting leadership involved early on. The sooner product knows about your evaluation, the easier it is to sell internally. The sooner you can get your leadership team involved, the easier that approval process is going to go. And of course, not everyone likes to do this. I always offer it, and when people accept, it always goes over incredibly well. Don't hesitate to invite your rep to those meetings with your leaders, with your C-suites. These customer success tools, I'll be the first person to say, they do about 50% of the same thing. It's that remaining 50% that really, differentiate. And if you're trying to buy a tool that's maybe more expensive than a competitor, you need to make sure you can really articulate the differences and the value. So get leadership involved and use all the resources, including the rep you're working with. They are the experts. And that pretty much concludes the presentation I had for today. I know we've got a couple minutes left, about 3 minutes. I'm happy to open up any questions. Feel free to go into the question tab in GoToWebinar, and I'm happy to answer anything the group might have. All right, one just came in. We use Outreach and HubSpot for email automation. What's the difference? Okay, there's a couple things to consider there. And to be totally honest, when I was a CSM, I used Outreach as well. It was really nice because I had a lot of accounts and I needed to book a lot of meetings, same way a sales rep would or an SDR might. And Outreach was great for that. But unfortunately, all it really did was get me the meeting when I needed the meeting. On the other side of the coin, you look at a customer success tool, generally, any sort of automated communication, it's going to be triggered based on really specific things. A drop in product usage, someone falling behind in the onboarding experience, customer health reaching a specific threshold. So it's very similar, and I guess the end result, you want to get a response, you want to get a meeting, but far less intuitive because using those tools, it's really hard to trigger that email because you don't have a really specific data point. And a lot of those marketing automation tools, they're just going to send 10 emails over 10 days. Customer success tools, they're going to be a little more strategic than that. See if we got any other questions coming in. All right, we've got one. This is kind of a funny one. I think I might have known who asked this. Who is your favorite churn monster and why? If anyone on the call here does not know what churn monsters are, I highly encourage everybody to go to our website and go to our resources and look the How to Fight the Churn Monster ebook. To keep it short, each reason a customer might decide not to renew has been depicted by a specific cartoon monster. And in that ebook, there's a variety of tips, tricks, best practices on how to deal with each one of those churn monsters. This is not the first time I've been asked that question either. So, I will say my favorite is the acquired churn monster. When I was a CSM, I always kind of had a sense of pride when one of my customers would get acquired by a larger organization. Typically means they were doing well. Also, maybe meant I was doing well. So it was very hard to find those dollars, from the acquiring company. I always thought that was really cool, and I thought that was a pretty good excuse for a customer to be churning if they got acquired by a much larger organization. And it looks like someone just chimed in another one. Can you customize trigger events to help our team identify churn risk? Yes, 100%. If you've not seen a demo of ChurnZero, check it out. There's essentially what we have the ability to do is leverage something called our segmentation engine. That's your ability to string together various data points that would then capture that event and trigger a workflow. So if you wanted to look at maybe accounts that were gradually dropping off in product engagement and have that impact a health score or trigger some sort of workflow, we can definitely do that. We could get very granular. You said the word customize. It would be very simple for a ChurnZero user to find all of their customers in which logins are decreasing by 50% or more month over month. And once that hits a certain threshold, deduct a certain percentage from that customer's health score. Maybe that bumps them into the red. Maybe that also triggers an automated playbook or an alert in Slack. But yeah, 100%. You can use any attribute, any data point to trigger those workflows. And those workflows could be a change in health score, could be an alert in Slack, could be a more complex, sophisticated process as well. But definitely our bread and butter. And I just realized it is now 2 minutes past the bottom of the hour. So thank you everybody for spending some additional time. Thank you all for joining me the last week of the year. I know lots of folks are on vacation. Glad that I'm not the only one working, but anything I can do, you guys have my information right here, churnzero.net, LinkedIn, all the resources I mentioned are on our website. And of course, all of the content we covered today will be distributed following the presentation. Thanks everybody for your time. Have a good Tuesday. Happy New Year. Wish everybody the best in 2021.